It has been one of my keenest interests to understand spiritual awakening and the variety of types of spiritual awakening around the world and different types of religious orientations. And I've just studied it for 45 years, experienced it, and I keep finding out more. So I've always wanted to find some common ground. What is its essence as far as the human species is concerned? So when a spiritual awakening occurs, sometimes it's, see if I can do this, I'm going to work this. I didn't awaken to do this part. Okay, so there are moments, hours, or days when that experiences can occur of a whole variety of types. A new spiritual perspective can come from that. A shift from one religious experience to another. A strong physical experience can be a part of a spiritual awakening. And sensory experiences, such as visionary experiences, can occur. And so there's a variety of ways that it can show up around the world in different religious settings. Some triggers for these experiences may be a traumatic event. Is there anybody in here who's had a traumatic event and something spiritual came from that? Okay, there's your evidence right there. Near-death experience. The use of plant medicine or psychedelic drugs, meditation or prayer, religious rituals, yoga, and there are many more. These are just some of them. Sometimes these events are intended, other times they are surprise. So it could happen any which way from those particular things here. Now Gopi Krishna, one of the early purveyors of Kundalini in the United States, he believed that while certain substances may produce spiritual awakening, external substances used to have spiritual experiences do not produce a long-term transformation of consciousness. That's his perspective, that you don't get it from external sources. Some would agree. That's his view on this. What I mean by a transformation of consciousness is that there's a fundamental change in one's spiritual outlook, one's psychological makeup, and even one's physiological functioning. So there's a change that's more than just, oh, I became aware of something new. I mean, there's a whole mind and body thing that's changing. That's what I mean by transformation. Your physiology, your brain functioning, and so forth works different henceforth. And I hope to show you some evidence of that later. So the focus of this is on the types of spiritual transcendent experiences that function as a shift in transformation of consciousness. So I hope you know what I mean by this transformation of consciousness. It's a bigger thing than just a simple aha per se. Here's one of the major forms that's universal in my perspective is the term Kundalini, which means coiled, often in reference to a coiled serpent. It symbolizes contained latent energy within each individual that can potentially activate and rise and activate the spiritual experiences along the way. Now as we go along, let me also mention that I'm going to share some things with you, but I'm inviting questions and discussion more as we go further along on this, as you get my definitions of what we're trying to talk about here. This is a study that was done on Kundalini, on spiritually transformative experiences. And in this study, these are some of the findings. And by the way, this study was done with people from countries all over the world, maybe about 11 or 12 different countries, and the survey was done. And you can see that spiritually transformative experiences, they had control group and so forth. And 100% of the people described that had that experience, called mystical experiences. Repeated 87% of the time, once 13% of the time. So you're seeing a tendency here. Psychic experiences that go along with this, 91% of the time. This is what I'm talking about, transformation of consciousness. There are changes that people didn't do this before. They didn't have these experiences, and then they did. And once they had them, again, repeated experiences, 91%. Once or twice, 0. Inspired creativity, 70% of the time. I just want to show you there is some research on this. And here's also some other things that they ask about. Kundalini experience, 100% of the time. And you saw near-death experience, 13% of the time. UFO communication, 30% of the time. Psychotic episodes, 13% of the time. So I don't want to just quote you information here. There's a problem here that is in our field where there are people that have psychotic experiences and people that have authentic spiritual experiences. But the difficult one is people that actually have both. And that can happen. Interesting stat about our mental health institutions, psychiatric hospitals, over 80% of the population in mental health hospitals have some dialogue about spiritual experiences. Yet the psychiatrists that run the institutions have no education about the spiritual aspect of these experiences. I used to be involved in a network that would send people to me who were trying to differentiate, is it psychotic, is it malfunctioning, or is it an authentic spiritual experiences? Now, they're very different, but the authentic spiritual experiences of this type can be very unusual to our culture. People are not familiar with these kinds of strange episodes. However, the psychotic ones sometimes can actually transform. I have ways we treat that where we can actually transform those states. So this is a very tricky area. It takes quite some discernment to know the difference and to work with it. And I can't tell right off. It takes me time to work with it. Other findings from the research, sensations, some of the Kundalini symptoms they experience, sensations of energy rising up the spine, 100%, bliss episodes, 87%, expansive episodes, 83%, perception of unusual lights, 74% of them, and perception of inner sounds. So you can see the tendencies of these kind of events that occur. One individual, I don't know if she's here tonight, she told me about having unusual experiences of perceiving lights. So she goes to the optometrist, thought something was wrong with her eyes. And of course her eyes were just fine, but nobody in conventional medicine told her what all these lights she was seeing, what they were at all. And until I finally came across her, and she didn't even tell me that at first, but then when she did disclose it, I showed her some information about these things happen. But this is why I'm doing this presentation. These unusual things happen to people, and they're stuck with these strange phenomena, nobody to talk to. They start wondering if something's wrong with them. In fact, they usually go to a physician who's physical symptoms and get some kind of medication and diagnosis for it. They can go to a psychiatrist, they'll give them some medications and so forth, and that doesn't help the situation. We don't have enough professionals that can actually distinguish the two. So anyway, these are just some of the results from Dr. Yvonne Caisson's work, who's in, I believe she's a Canadian physician who had a near-death experience in Kundalini as well. So she and some others got together and did one of these studies. One of the things that I need to mention is that Kundalini, as I'm going to describe it to you, is not necessarily a belief. It is an experience of the divine. So it's a direct experience. And that's what gets touchy. People trying to understand that if you just have if God talks to you when you walk out of this room and you see God and you feel Him, who are you going to tell about this? Now, some of you may have buddies that you can tell, but normally people don't have many people to talk to about this. So this is why I decided to come out of the closet and talk about this phenomena that takes place. Because there's a lot of people out there worrying about, mainly I get people that are scared and worrying about themselves. Are they okay? Should I get on antidepressants right away? Do I need to do something for myself? And some kind of which doctor would I go to? Probably a witch doctor would probably be best. But anyway, So here's some common misunderstandings about Kundalini that I wanted to make sure that I went over, because these are common and frequent. And so one of my first goals is to educate for something constructive here. And that is, I can read it better here. Some people think Kundalini is only about intensifying occult skills, sexuality. Real Kundalini practices recommend sublimating sex and not exploring it for sexual gratification alone. Now, what happens when you have an awakening and your whole body is tingling and so forth, God doesn't just omit your genitals in the process. So some things can happen of a sexual nature that may be part of a whole experience, but that's not the focus of it. If you let the media go for it, and some of our peers, you'll hear about this aspect of it, but that's not the central function of it at all. So let's go. So let me see, another misunderstanding. One of the things that's a problem here is if you develop a skill, let's say you have empathy and you can read people's minds, or you can heal somebody, or you can do any number of unusual things. You know, some of us just see dollar signs and we go for it, you know. I don't know what happened to the spiritual path, but it gets lost sometimes along the way. And you know, some of us may seek fame or fortune or whatever with some special skills. I knew one gentleman who developed some skills, and his wife got threatened that, my God, he was going to get very popular doing this thing, and it would cause their marriage to go down the drain and so forth. So it's threatening to some people when you develop skills that are unusual, that are maybe potentially profitable in some ways. And by ego inflation, I mean we can lose our way very easily because of the attraction of these unusual experiences that sometimes can take place. And so that's one of the biggest issues, you know. If I'm a guy and I develop these skills and women start hanging around me, I mean, that's another temptation. The Buddha's first temptation was dancing girls as he was sitting under the tree, the tree to look seeking enlightenment. So there's a lot of risk there, and a lot of people go a lot of different directions because of this. Interventions such as body work, energy work, psychic healings may provide certain symptom relief, but it's not the same as Kundalini energy. Kundalini energy is difficult to feel unless it's in the process of flowing significantly. So there's a concept of the Western model where, last I counted, there were 66 different forms of energy work, and mine wasn't on that list, so there's 67. And of those types, from Reiki, from acupuncture, from all those things, this is good. It helps people. All energy is not the same. From traditional Kundalini yoga, they see Kundalini energy as the fundamental energy from which all the other energies emerge from. In the Indian system, there are like 40,000 nadis or vayas, in other words, energy channels around the body. 40,000 of them. And so when you look at, for example, this system that shows the main focus of the Kundalini energy, notice how it zigzags, starting from the base of the spine on the right and base of the spine on the left. And we're not even showing the 40,000 other energy channels around there. So you can move energy and affect people in a positive way. That's not necessarily Kundalini, as we're speaking about it. So it's a different phenomena. The Eastern model even does things like they capitalize the term Kundalini because they see it as the same as the divine. And it's a different quality of energy and has different effects in terms of transformation of consciousness. Other energy systems can help you feel better and get through certain things, the stress, physical pain, a variety of things. But does it transform consciousness? And in most cases, it doesn't. Sometimes it does. Sometimes when you're using other energy system, it may tap into someone whose Kundalini has arisen to some extent and activate it. So it's not a simple matter to discern. There's a misunderstanding that there is only one kind of rising, that it progresses sequentially upward, opening each chakra as it goes. I wish it were that simple. That's one reason I have this course, is to tell you this rarely happens. I have one person I know of that happened. But all the rest of them, it was a much longer journey, much more, the way that the movement of the energy moved was certainly not direct, simple. It was intermittent at times. Sometimes it took years to make its passage through the physical body into the psyche. But this idea is generally true in the sense that ultimately it does that, but it rarely does it in a single shot. The one I know of that it did, she didn't even know what happened to her. A woman was giving birth, and the doctor accidentally punctured the dura mater at the base of the spine during the birth process, and it activated it, and she had a ball of light moving straight up through her. Of course, the doctors had no clue what was happening. I'm told there was one Indian doctor in the room who was jumping up and down talking about Kundalini, and the rest of them, they expected the same response you would get if you punctured the dura mater anyway. You're going to have convulsions, headaches. Of course, she had none of that. But what they wrote in the medical records was the standard things that would happen. They wrote convulsions, and they wrote about headache. She had no headache. Her husband was right there with her. If you can imagine going through the birth process with a look of bliss on your face the entire time, the whole physiological process. Her husband was watching this. Now, this woman didn't know what happened. I met her 7 years later, and when she was having all these unusual experiences for years, she didn't know what happened to her. I offered her a book on Kundalini to read it, and she came back, she says, that's what happened. That is it, what took place. That's the only case I've encountered directly where it actually rose up in one fell swoop to the top, but the poor woman was not guided. It's interesting how Western medicine will, in their notes, put the classic features down even though she had none of those. There is a phenomenon that occurs with Kundalini rising where there's involuntary bodily movements. I guess you could construe that as a convulsion, but it wasn't in this particular case. This is one of the major myths that, boom, it happens, you're done in an hour, and that's it. Well, I just don't see that. Another one. A Kundalini rising does not happen only to spiritual people, and that arising does not necessarily make a person spiritual, although it will eventually press a person to a spiritual life. It could happen to anybody under certain circumstances, and circumstances are correct. Like I mentioned, trauma, yoga, a variety of different things, you're not looking for it, and these activities can take place, and a person doesn't happen to have a spiritual philosophy per se. In my work, people have spiritual experiences that are a byproduct of what I'm doing. I'm not even trying to do that in most cases. And Jews have Christian experiences. Atheists have God experiences. I've seen the whole variety happen over time. Spiritual experiences are just, it's just a human thing that takes place. I had one Christian woman who really followed the scriptures and studied, and she was a great Christian person, but she never had a direct experience until we did this. And when she did, she was stunned to actually have a direct experience with the divine. She thought this all her life, but when it happens, it's a different deal. It doesn't necessarily happen exactly as the scriptures may describe it, at least the one she was familiar with. So you don't have to, it can happen to somebody that's atheist, agnostic, and I've had that happen to atheists. One woman I worked with, her family was atheist, all her friends were atheists. In their social settings, they made fun of Christian churches and stuff. This was just a target for verbal play. And then she had an experience, and she told me that she saw and hears God. And I know my colleagues were going to think, okay, this is a psychotic case, you're misdiagnosing this. We actually had her do SPECT brain scans to see. It would be obvious if it was a psychotic or schizophrenic state. It was not there at all. The brain was absolutely calm, unusually so, except for the occipital portion of the brain where she was claiming she was seeing God. All we know is that the evidence is that in that part of the brain it suggests that a visual experience is taking place. Now, the research and the brain scan can't tell us she saw God, but it can tell us that her brain was unusually still and peaceful, except for the occipital lobe where she was claiming to see God at that particular time and feel that presence. And she was troubled. Who do you talk to if all your friends are atheists? What do you say? And so she had a struggle socially embracing that in that sense. Okay. Let's see. A person can have remarkable paranormal skills and be unstable and not authentically spiritual at all. Do any of you know someone who you would say fits that? Have you ever met anybody? You one? Okay, two, a few. You can have these skills that are similar to what happens when people have awakenings, but they may not be on their spiritual path. They got derailed for one thing or another. Traumas can happen, and any number of things could keep people from experiencing that. So it's not necessarily the mark of someone who is authentically spiritual, because they can achieve certain things in life with other people that may be extremely unusual. Another one, if a person already possesses an array of unresolved trauma and emotions, arising may provoke disturbances to the surface. Now this is the one that's probably one of the biggest problems we run into, is I developed, let me just say, its function is to clear the subtle body towards sacred unity experience. I mean, it is clearing you out. I call it a purification process. Well, when it's happening, that just feels like hell. It doesn't feel like any purification process. But you got to see it in context. If I were to tell you, all right, here's a person, and the person's blood pressure skyrocket, they're screaming in pain, and they can't bear what's going on, tissues are torn, there's bleeding, that sounds like a bad experience, right? But if you put it in the context of a normal human birth, it's sometimes seen as a very good experience. So it's the context in which you perceive it that would make sense of it in that particular case. I know some of you still wouldn't volunteer, but still, that's what happens. Anybody given birth before? Okay, without medications, okay? Was it a challenging experience during the time? Okay, so just to get to fulfillment doesn't always mean the road is not rocky. And what happens though in our society is that, let me just go back, I'll talk about that a little bit more later. I'm going to give you a little bit about the history of Kundalini in the United States. The earliest that we have actual evidence for is Carl Jung, the psychiatrist, came to the United States in 1932, spoke about Kundalini after having visited India. And so he was the first one that garnered some attention about this whole process. Subsequent to that, several Indian gurus came to the United States in the 30s and 40s, but really nobody really heard about them much. They didn't make a dent in the psyche of society as a whole. But then, in the late 1960s, the Beatles were at their height of popularity, and they adopted transcendental meditation. All of a sudden, meditation was thrust into the psyche of people in the United States. Their popularity was as high as you could possibly be. And this is a picture with them with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, where they made that picture, and they wrote some songs pertaining to that. So the beginning of a lot of activity. I mean, I was in college at that time. At that time, then the whole transcendental meditation began to take place among some of us many years ago. But that was what popularly got things going. And then the great, wait a minute, I skipped one here. Oh yeah, no, there's two of them. Gopi Krishna and Swami Muktananda are two gurus from India. Gopi Krishna's not a guru, but an Indian man who came to the United States. And Gopi Krishna's book was the one that really popularized it initially. His book was his own autobiographical experience through the Kundalini process, beautifully written, very popular. How many of you heard of this book before? Yes, it really thrust attention. And the second one was Swami Muktananda. Muktananda was different in that he facilitated Kundalini experiences commonly and frequently simply by his gaze or his touch. He went to audiences that he became popular among movie stars, and thousands of people showed up to his events in the early 1970s. I've had friends that were in his presence when it took place. One of my friends was an agnostic, and she went, and so she went to the event where he was there, and afterward she said nothing happened. And then on the car on the way home, everything became light for her. She saw inner light, external light, and so forth. It just suddenly occurred subsequent to having been there. So one of the problems was people were having thousands of people, if you can imagine, in a crowd having these experiences, sometimes all at the same time. So it was a rather chaotic audience from what I'm told. But what was different is his capacity to facilitate a Kundalini awakening very, very quickly. And so that got the attention of the media and population. So these two people, Gopi Krishna and Swami Muktananda, were really the main people that got the word out about this, that made it popular, where people knew what it was, heard of it. I think that what I've found from looking at the research is that this is a universal phenomena. There is a tendency to find your religious orientation, lock in, and dismiss everything else. Well, there's another perspective. Crazy people like me want to find what is universal. What is universal among people that have spiritual and religious experiences? And so as I looked at the cross-cultural information about this, they don't always call it Kundalini, but I've chosen the word Kundalini because the Indians from India made the best detailed account of it than other cultures that I've seen. You have the Kung people in the Kalahari Desert that described phenomena that match very closely to what traditional Kundalini people would describe. You have Christians like Saint Teresa of Lisieux in France who described an experience that was very much in line with what the Kundalini phenomena is like, the same symptoms. And then you have Chinese Taoist tradition in which they described an experience that was an awakening subsequent to the stillness of a mind. So we're looking at different cultures, different religions. The Eureka of the Ouroboros describes Kundalini symptoms or reported. And a variety of classic yoga accounts produce Kundalini. So this is a pretty broad-ranging thing that happens in a lot of places. So I see that as a uniting phenomena that can occur in so many different cultures. So here's a description from, I can't remember her name right now, that she defined it as, it's the operative power that yields spiritual attainment, whatever one's chosen path or religion may be. I like that description. She says it's the operant power that does that universally. That's from a Kundalini yoga specialist, Dr. Joan Harrigan, I remembered her name, who said that. And so for myself, I developed a new model of psychotherapy that uses visual brain stimulation to allow emotional distress to be alleviated within minutes, physical symptoms to change within a single session, and spiritual events to occur whether I'm trying to do it or not. If you get over a profound trauma, sometimes there's a pretty ecstatic joy that follows that. And sometimes that can be elevated into a spiritual state for a lot of people. And so without trying, that kept happening with this new model that I use. And because it kept happening, it forced me to look at it more and try to understand it more. So basically, with this new model, we can purify the system from psychological distress more rapidly and more completely. What I didn't count on is when you do that, sometimes a spiritual experience will erupt as a consequence. So I've seen, then I gradually began to get people who actually wanted these awakenings. And after time, I decided, okay, if this keeps happening, I'm going to spend some time, how do I make it happen on purpose? How do I develop that? So my third book, which is back there, Spiritually Transformative Psychotherapy, I've developed ways to facilitate these things to happen on purpose if and when a person is ripe for such a thing. And so my model of treatment is so different in its effect that often these things occurred, so now it's a part of my curriculum when I teach the courses. So why is understanding Kundalini important? Why the heck are we here? Why am I here? This is one of the big thrusts I have, and that is there's been an increase in the number of people that meditate, but there's not necessarily an increase in understanding of the consequences of meditation. So as that popular thing goes around, I'm having people come in that have issues that are very peculiar, and I find out they've been doing a certain kind of meditation and nobody told them about these consequences. So I get this a lot. There's an increase in the number of people participating in yoga across the US. Some people just view it as exercise. Well, I get people who are having consequences that are beyond exercise and spiritual awakenings that occur in a peculiar way. Like, for example, all of a sudden you have the ability to heal people or read people's minds or detect things nobody else can detect. And all you know is you took a few yoga classes, okay? But the yoga teacher didn't talk about that part. So these two popular things that are taking place are having some consequences, because I'm getting some of those clients that are having those consequences and they don't understand what it is. So that's why I think it's important to have people aware of this. In American culture, when unusual symptoms come up, what do? We want to find a remedy to stop that unpleasant symptom. And that's just how we learn to think. Headache comes up, pop a pill. Something else comes up, go to your doctor, get something to stop it. Do steroids, stop it. Whatever it is that's happening, get that bad thing to stop, because we see it as bad when our body is going through these kinds of changes. Wait a minute, I didn't go back. So without regard to it, we don't look at the symptoms, we look at the symptoms without regard to its meaning, its function, or the possibility that it may be a part of a spiritual event. Have any of you ever had a spiritual experience that was in some way unpleasant? Raise your hands. Okay. Did you take drugs right away to stop it? Okay. A lot of people don't know that. That's just an American psyche. That's what you do. And if you do that, and it is an authentic rising, it makes it worse. And then a lot of people come in, they've tried everything, they've gone through this and that and this kind of medication, seen 6 different doctors, and nobody's asked them spiritual questions. Nobody's asked them what was their intent around the time when the arising took place. So this, I think, is really one of my biggest functions of even doing this presentation. I want to get the word out. There's another context to see these symptoms in. So here's, again, Dr. Harrigan's description of the basic indications of Kundalini rising. She says, deep yearning for inner development, spiritual ongoing, compassion for and desire to serve others, inner sensations of light, sound, or heat, feelings of energy flowing or vibrating within, spontaneous body movements, atypical physical symptoms. In my field, if you had spontaneous body movements, we might call it Tourette's syndrome, or a tic, or ADHD, because their bodies are moving. There's a lot of bodily movements that are involuntary that are pathological in our area, but we're not distinguishing what's going on with them spiritually at that time. So the involuntary movements are a classic symptom of Kundalini rising. In fact, I got to tell you one story here. When I first started getting into this, I was inspired primarily by a gentleman that came into my office. Oh, I guess he was maybe 55 years old, very conservatively dressed, flat top, gray hair, you know, some kind of foreman in construction or something like that. Didn't go to church, certainly never took a class in yoga. And he said, "Doctor, help me." Okay, well, what's the problem? Can you describe it? It just keeps happening to me, and I can't stop it. I want to stop it. Can you help me with this? And so after a few minutes of dialogue, I said, "Well, can you show me? Can you let it happen?" And so finally he got down on the floor. His eyes rolled completely back. All you could see was the whites of his eyes. He went into a yoga posture, okay? And then he went into another one, and another one. 25 of them in about 40 minutes. They were all perfectly symmetrical, beautiful. He'd never taken a yoga class in his life. And he went through this for 40 minutes. When I saw this, I'd heard that this took place, but I'd never seen it firsthand until this gentleman came in. And all he wanted is to stop it. That's what people want to do with some of the symptoms that come up, not seeing the context of the spiritual component of this. They just want to stop these symptoms. He said, if I just let it go, I could just go do it all day. And so I don't think that would happen. If he did let it go, that would really be the answer in this case. This is something you surrender to. So I only saw him one time, but that verified what I'd read and understood about how it can work. I mean, his pants were crooked as he going through all this stuff. He was oblivious to it. It was just spontaneous, like 2 minutes per posture, one and another yoga position. And so in other words, to me, I could see it's a real thing that happens to people that aren't looking for it per se. And I wish I didn't get to help him because I only saw him once, but I've helped a lot of others because of him, because I saw the validity of it and who's going to be able to help him. So I took that on as my challenge to do. So inner sensations of light, sound, heat, feelings of energy flowing or vibrating within, spontaneous body movements, atypical physical symptoms. These are the people that sometimes have gone to a lot of doctors for a lot of variety of symptoms and they just can't find it. They can't nail what it is sometimes, or they'll give it a name in some cases. So a lot of people actually have arthritis, have this, have that, and they're still having a rising simultaneously. That's difficult to discern. A heightened awareness of inner life, elevated sensations, altered states of consciousness, glimpses of bliss, mystical experiences, an expanded worldview, special talents and perceptions, psychic and healing abilities. These are phenomena that often come with the territory. And frankly, most of the people I've run into, it scared them initially when it takes place. I would say it's about adjustment, and I compare it to if you won the lotto. Do you think everybody wins the lotto does well? The research says that most of them are bankrupt before they get their last payment, and most of them are divorced before they're finished getting all their payments. It's a positive input that they're not prepared for, and that's what usually happens with this, is that it's just so overwhelmingly, I guess you'd say, wonderful or good, that the adjustment is a huge challenge, that few people can actually make that adjustment very well. I mean, I struggled. That's some of what I went through. But some people, it actually shows up as physical pain. A sense, again, one of the other symptoms, a sense of something non-ordinary or holy is happening. Notice how she put that. A sense of something non-ordinary or holy is happening. You know that. How do you tell your friends, your family? Something holy is happening to me. It usually doesn't communicate very well. So this is as much for me as anybody. My ancestry is of Spain, Spanish Jews who came across, and the reason they left was they would be beheaded if they were found out in Spain. So I have a long history of keeping my spiritual stuff silent because you'd lose your head. And so I didn't know that for a while, but that's the ancestry of it, and I wondered why I was hesitant, besides the fact that this is so strange to most people. So when psychological symptoms arise, the immediate response is seek a pill or stop, reduce the symptoms. Americans are often not interested in understanding or pursuing long-term resolution or to seek only to stop the discomfort now. Just stop it now. That's what most people think. I don't blame them. Some of these symptoms are pretty unpleasant, but there's a bigger picture that I'm hoping that you're grasping from this, that there could be something else going on. When a spiritual understanding of symptoms is absent, it places many people at risk of worsening their conditions. If these events are viewed as within a spiritual quest and seen as an effort to purify these disturbances from one system, the journey can be guided through minimal distress. I had one client that came to me, was referred to me. On our first session in my private practice, she said, and James, this is the one that you know about, she said, I don't want to talk about my feelings or my past. And as a psychotherapist, I'm going, well, what do we talk about? I didn't say anything. I just helped her see that I brought out the DSM-5, which has all the diagnosis. I had her see that post-traumatic stress disorder, people have an avoidance tendency. It comes with the disorder. When she saw that was part of the symptoms of the disorder, she accepted it. But that's how our first session started. And, you know, they come to the therapist, but they don't want to talk about it. That's not real uncommon. We're trying to purify people's systems, and to do that, I need to build a bond with them that they can honestly disclose what's going on with them, so we have a chance of developing a strategy to facilitate a change. And I need that from them. Sometimes they give it to me and sometimes they don't, and I have to get clever. All right, if resistance to these disturbances occur, these symptoms can be quite disturbing and last a long time. After telling you all this, I've scared you half to death. Is it worth it to experience Kundalini activation? Well, blockages during a long process of Kundalini awakening can produce physical pain, paralysis, depression, anxiety. And there's a couple people in here who have experienced that, and they're no longer paralyzed, by the way. There are ways to get through that if you know what you're doing. Through proper guidance, these symptoms can be eliminated without drugs. Now that's a new one for a lot of people. The ultimate culmination of rising can produce profound fulfillment of each person's maximum potential. How many of you would like to be the maximum of what you're capable of being while you're here on the planet? Okay? You're at the right lecture then, if that's the case. That's what this is about. Maximizing all you can be. Now here's Gopi Krishna's descriptions of what the experience is like. And I'm going to get to say one of my favorite words in here as we go along. Vivid sensations of light, both within and without. A feeling of extreme rapture that is reflected in the whole appearance of the individual. Often streaming tears at the majestic and sublime nature of the spectacle. A sense of intimacy or proximity to an infinite presence or a celestial being. And I would say that's probably the most common phenomena right there, number 4. Contact with an infinite font of knowledge. And then my favorite word, horripilation. Do you know what horripilation is? Anybody knows what it is? I looked it up. It's like when you have goosebumps when you get to that point. And so he taught me horripilation. Sorry, I just like to say it over. A sense of unbounded wonder and awe at the surpassing vision. Intellectual illumination with jnana, that is perennial wisdom. So in my own experience, sure. I just thought you would want to look at horripilation. So my personal experience now, there is data with transcendental meditation. 3 studies done. One didn't show much, but the other 2 did. That there's a significant elevation in IQ. In my particular case, I'd had some brain concussions from sports. In school, I did make B's, C's. At one point, I flunked out of college. I came back. I got into graduate school on probation. By the time I finished, I made the highest scores anybody ever made in the PhD program on the history of the school, because I was doing the meditation at that time, and this transformation of intellect was just profound. I mean, my wife is here, she can attest, I was not a scholar at all. And I just barely made it through school, and then all of a sudden I just seemed to just gobble up books and information and research, and it made sense to me. It was just an obvious difference in capacity to understand things. So if you're still struggling in school, there's hope. That's what I'm telling you for one thing. But mine was so dramatic that it was a awkward adjustment for me. How come I learn so fast? I know so much. It changed it dramatically. So that's one of the very functional changes in your brain that can take place. And this was just from the meditation, which I think set up the possibility of me having all the hundreds of spiritual experiences I've had since then. At this point, I'm going to stop and have you ask some questions. We do have several courses to follow this to give you much more information in detail. I'll actually bring the SPEC scans of the brains that we've looked at before and after spiritual experiences, and you can see them for yourself in the future courses. But right now, I'm opening the door for questions. And surely I've said something that you want to ask a question about. Yes, ma'am.
So I had an experience where I was doing some Kundalini yoga, and I started having those ecstatic kind of experiences, and then I stopped having seizures for the first time in 35 years. Mm-hmm. Now I'm wondering, were the seizures part of the experience?
It sounds like it. If it stopped.
I started having seizures when I was like 11.
Yep. Sounds like it. I had, my early experience was, I was 7 years old, and I had this spiritual visionary experience and dialogue with a spiritual being. And then at that time, it was just before the salt vaccine came out, and so they thought I had polio because I was paralyzed from the waist down for a substantial period of time. Now looking back on what I know, I think that was a paralysis of part of the spiritual activity that was going on within me at that time, because they were never for sure what happened. They just knew I was paralyzed for some period of time. And then some other experiences happened subsequent to that. So what you said, logically you might project that yes, that may have been what's happening. There were blockages that were there that facilitated the seizures, as somehow you undid the blockages in some way. You saw the difference. It just stopped.
But that is, the Kundalini is curative, but it may just have been finally
yes.
open.
Yes, finally got through the block to make it the rest of the way. Yes?
I want to thank you, because I had an experience that I think involved Kundalini energy a number of years ago when I was crying for a vision in the Native American tradition. And I reached a point where I felt like I was floating because I was so filled with bliss. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, God, I've never had any experience like this before. You know, it's almost weird, but it's wonderful. And it changed everything around me, and it changed even when when someone would say something to me physically. It was like they could say to me, hello, and it would be like the most incredible, luscious, mm-hmm. ultimate secret of the universe. Mm-hmm. And then what you helped me to realize tonight was, I think I probably had my first experience of Kundalini energy when I was 12. Mm-hmm. I happened to, I was going to a Catholic school at the time, and a Catholic priest came to talk to us to get all the nice boys to go into seminaries and the girls to go into convents and so on. And I heard this fellow give his presentation, and I realized at one point he was showing slides, as you are, of his missionary experience in India. And at one point I thought, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And it changed everything. And it was like, how can I describe it? I felt differently. It was like I felt this bliss. And then for the next year, every time I would talk with this fellow and go to where he was and that kind of thing, it was like I was walking into an energy field. Mm-hmm. And I'd be quiet, and then I'd walk into the field, and it would be like, mm-hmm. You know, not in a nervous sense, not in a negative way, very positively.
It's fun to try to describe these things, isn't it?
It is, because language fails.
Yes.
And as with many of us, I'm always trying to adjust language so that it's at least a reasonable approximation.
Well, you have the word horripilation you can use now to describe it.
I had a revelation when I cried for a vision.
You did?
Yeah, I heard a scratching one night, and it was completely dark because I was out in the comparative wilderness. And I heard a scratching by my sacred space. And I immediately got goosebumps because I knew it was an animal, but I couldn't see who it was. I couldn't see what it was.
Yeah.
And this was actually in Oklahoma. So I said to myself, you know, this is not the Serengeti Plain. This is not a rhino or something like that who's going to trample me or eat me alive. But it didn't make any difference because visually, I knew that I was probably going to be eaten. But my intercessor had said to me, he said, no matter what happens for you, no matter what your experiences are, stay in your sacred space and you'll be fine. And that had been physically defined for me. The next morning, when I got up, I realized what the scratching was, what had created the scratching. During the night, it was a mountain lion. And the mountain lion came up to me, and we were about maybe a foot apart, and we just experienced each other. And what I realized was I had no fear of him, and he had no fear of me. And what I also realized was, practically speaking, I was probably in his territory, and he was coming to check me out to see who was in his space. But it was astounding, and we just communicated with each other. We didn't need words. It was just a wonderfully calm, blissful experience.
Those are experiences you'll definitely remember, for sure. Well, the odd thing is, some of these powerful, unusual experiences, people dispense of and they actually forget. I have them come in my office and they recall some of them because it just doesn't match with the rest of reality. And it's amazing how we can repress. By repression, I mean involuntarily push it back to where if it doesn't fit, it's like you're trying to fit a puzzle piece into the puzzle and there's one that doesn't fit, you just think it doesn't go there. Not that there's a way to turn around that it would go. Yes?
Yes, I had...
Thank you, Stephen.
As of tonight, I realized that I had a Kundalini experience 25 years ago that saved my life. And I was driving along at 7:15 at night, and all of a sudden I heard a voice next to me that said, "You are completely at peace." And then I had a horripilation, which I didn't know about.
Now everybody's has a horripilation.
And I had it started at my feet, went to the top of my head, and I was completely paralyzed. And then I saw the headlights heading toward me, and I got hit head on by a drunk driver going 50 miles
Oh my
55
God.
miles an hour. Driver's side to driver's side. And she did not survive. But it took them about an hour and a half to cut me out of the car, and I was, you know, I had injuries on my legs, and my right wrist was broken. But, and this was before airbags, of course. But I survived, and I'm now writing a book about it because I've just wondered, you know, why I was saved. What it was, and the name of my book is Paralyzed by Peace, because I've had people tell me that if by being paralyzed that way, I was like a rag doll and I was flopping, and so consequently, I didn't have any internal injuries and maybe some crackles, but that was it. And so anyway, so but I can't say that I've ever had another. I don't think I want to have another one quite like that.
Unfortunately, we don't get to choose to some extent.
But I am now an energy, you know, ultimately resulted in
that benefit.
Exact direction that you were talking about.
Yes.
It's very interesting to hear, you know, the process. Like, oh yeah, I've been through that now.
Yes. Sometimes even when it happens, it's hard to realize it. In 1987, I was sent a client who was blind from birth, who had multiple sites of physical pain. She already had heart surgery, and she was having seizures, 7 or 8 seizures per day. And I worked with her after the first couple of months. The seizures went to 1 a month. After a couple more months, the pain was gone. And then finally, I had this experience that blew me away, where we were able to retrieve her vision, and she was blind from birth. And from that point on, I decided I am not going to limit what I think is possible about anything ever again. And so I'll try. I don't succeed all the time, but I'll try a lot of different kinds of things. And so I did the energy work before I developed this other model I was talking to you about, so I still do that as well. And so I've been the subject of one published study where they took what they considered the most advanced healers in 2003, Barbara Brennan, myself, John Paracas, we were the three that were the subject. They wanted to see what was going on inside of us when we did this work. So that's been, actually that was a major part of my awakening, is spontaneously, I didn't take any course, I didn't never learn Reiki. I was just able to do that in 1984 at one point. And fortunately it wasn't due to a car wreck in that case. So, but there can be a lot of, when I work with people with near-death experiences, or even Kundalini, there's often an association with a lot of trauma, and then this wonderful spiritual thing. There's this huge contradictory experience with very undeveloped, troubled side of them, and a very ecstatic spiritual side. And I work to try to unify those, and because it's just a strange world to live in with those two extremes. You know, you operate as a traumatized person, and then you have the spiritual bliss on one weekend or whatever. And it is a tough going back and forth. Other questions, particularly, yes, Jane?
So I know Stephen well professionally, and we've worked together. But I'm realizing tonight of your description of Kundalini that I've had very unusual, odd physical feats of physical abilities that are not explainable. And when I was 19 years old and I was traveling around the United States with my best friend with an appendicitis that was horribly infected for 9 months and I did not know it, I was in San Francisco sitting at a roadside little cafe, and I look across the street, and going down San Francisco is a moving mail truck with no driver in it. And I didn't even think about it. I ran across 4 lanes of traffic, jumped in this truck, and slammed on the brakes, and walked away as the mailman was running up saying, that would have been the second accident I had in 3 months, and I would have been fired. But I walked back to the table, and my friend, I wouldn't believe it if my best friend wasn't sitting there. It's like, what the hell just happened? And I'm like, what do you mean? I just ran across the street and stopped that truck. And he's like, no, you look like something I can't even describe that was running, jumping in, and then you just walked back casually. And I'm thinking now, because I have had a closed head injury at 4 years old with a major spiritual experience of a blue light above me telling me I was here for a reason, I hadn't even considered that piece. Is that possible in that kind of physical feats of nature?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, when you deal in this territory, you hear a lot of unusual phenomena, and I've heard a lot. They don't always mean it's Kundalini, but they may. They may. And so people need to be able to come forth to tell somebody who would understand such a thing in order to be guided out of this, because most people will just not know what to do with that kind of a story. Yeah, other questions, anybody? Yes?
So do you practice psychotherapy?
Yes, I practice psychotherapy, and I just happen to work with a lot of people who have blockages of a spiritual nature, and that's one of my special areas that I work with.
I need to talk to you.
Okay, all right. Yes, back there. Yeah.
I've talked to a lady that with transcendental meditation could levitate. There may have been a time, during the time of the Beatles and Maharishi, or getting started famous, can higher levels of training in transcendental meditation cause things like that? And is that Kundalini related?
I don't think so. Not necessarily. Again, there can be feats and skills that are very unusual that people have that doesn't necessarily equate to being Kundalini per se. You saw the main features are, look at number 4, a sense of intimacy or proximity to an infant presence or a celestial being. That's probably one of the primary features. Now you can have those skills and not have that experience per se. So it's very difficult to discern. Any other questions? Somebody else? Yes, in the back.
Can you experience Kundalini through dreams?
You can. You can. It's unusual. I've only heard that could take place. I haven't worked with anybody directly that's taken place. So this is a deal that the boundaries of what's possible is not quite what we would imagine it to be. Yes?
About dreams.
I had a period of about 3 or 4 years in my life where at night my body would start, when I was asleep, but it would wake me. My body would just start buzzing. And this buzzing was just going all through me, and sometimes it made me nauseous, and often it was kind of an orgasmic feeling, but it just kept happening. And sometimes I would wake up and open my eyes, and all I could see was a frost pattern. And sometimes I would wake up and open my eyes, but nothing moved. And I wasn't afraid of it. It didn't feel like something to be afraid of. But that was the point at which my life took a different direction.
Ah, interesting, interesting. Thank you so much. Holly, would you be willing to share
Sure.
what I mentioned to you?
Sure. Should we come up or?
No, just share it. I've worked with her with Kundalini, so I wanted her to share what her experience was.
Yes. Okay, what would you like me to share?
Well, the paralysis would be a good one.
Okay. So, when I first had my awakening experience, it was definitely a difficult rising. And one of the things that happened in the very beginning is I woke up one morning and my body was completely paralyzed, except I could move my eyes. And so that was a very scary experience because, again, it had just started. And, I was already working with Dr. Vazquez, and my husband knew to text him and say, hey, she's not able to move her body at all. And so, yeah, it was.
And then by phone, I communicated with her,
Yes.
and energetically, she was able to move. I just want you to know that when those things scare you, you need to hear a story of somebody who was there and actually was guided out of that. So you just need to know that's possible, because some people wouldn't think that is. Other questions, anybody? Yes?
In your practice, you're working from a energetic psychotherapist perspective, and in one of your slides you were talking about if you're basically holding space and for that person to express what they're experiencing. Do you find that you also offer, like in Gopi Krishna's books, of all the times he had to do experimentations with how to eat, how to move, how to sleep, how to work with himself? Do you
Absolutely.
that as well?
Absolutely. I haven't had a drop of alcohol in 30 years. I don't take any drugs, stimulants of any type. The reason is because I have a sensitivity. I want to be clear and clean for my purpose, which is healing. And I can optimize that. And I'm not suffering from not doing those things either. Because the ecstasy is so great to be in the healing process with people that it just far outweighs whatever I have to disparage of. But people that are going through it tend to have a higher sensitivity to certain foods. There's a physician that wrote a book called The Discovery of the Rainbow Diet. Gabriel Cousins wrote this book after being around people where Muktananda would facilitate Kundalini. He developed a diet that's optimal for spiritual experiences, and that's his book that's about that. It's an older book now, but that's how it was developed with people with spiritual experiences. How do you optimize it? People are very touchy about what they can and can't eat with this, and medications can work poorly or even unusually bad with some people that are going through this. So it's the way I describe it to my clients that are going through this, I say it's like, all right, you have a car. Some of you can take your car requires one's regular. What's the other one?
Premium.
Premium. Okay, it's like now you require premium. You can't. It's not that it's making you worse, but your system requires a higher level in that way. So I tell them now it's like you require premium, and so you have to be careful about what you eat and do and so forth. It's not all the same. Anyway, so did I respond to your question? Okay, good. Yes, somebody in back. Yes, Sherry.
Well, it's maybe, I'm sure it's a rudimentary question, but when I was in Hawaii my partner. It was a dream trip, and we were doing Kundalini yoga, just the two of us and the guy who was leading it. And we're overlooking the ocean, and we don't do a lot of yoga, but it seemed like a pretty great thing to do in Hawaii. And we did the Kundalini yoga, and we were chanting, and there's the birds of Hawaii, whatever they are, they're everywhere, kind of like big ducks. And they started sort of chanting with us. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, we were all in sync. They felt the energy we were putting out. And so it was a magical, powerful experience, there's no doubt, and I definitely had a buzzy feeling. Well, my partner, after we finished, started sort of, like almost like having a seizure and like saying, oh, I'm nauseous, and I, in my just ultimate moment of sensitivity, pretty much said, snap out of it. Because I didn't understand what was going on, and sometimes I thought she was being dramatic. I mean, like, it was truly just ignorance, and honestly, clearly after this presentation, it was, no doubt in my mind, it was this beautiful spiritual.
I wish you could be here. I wanted to hear about the seizure and about the paralysis, how they turned out good. But you got to put them in the context. So what happened is, when I talked to her, she was against Kundalini yoga ever again after that, because all she saw was she was paralyzed and had these symptoms for a while. Did anybody, the yoga teacher, anybody tell them anything about these possibilities?
I think he was somewhat new to the field. So my question is, what could I have done better? You know, I mean, how could I have...
What you do with that is, if you can get their fear down, you want them to just relax into it and let it will just move through if you can relax into it. If you jolt and brace, it's going to block it and make everything worse, basically. But that's easy to say. It's hard to do when a person is frightened. And so fortunately, I have some processes to take the fear down. There's probably limited as to what you could do, but I'm glad you heard this. That's what inspired me to have Holly tell her story, because I wanted you to hear. It's a part of the process. Now, Holly, after you went through that, how were you?
Today?
No, after you went through the paralysis and all that got straightened, we corrected that.
I mean, I'm not paralyzed today.
It was a long time ago. It's out there.
Yeah.
So.
But I had some subsequent instances that sometimes my arms would go paralyzed, sometimes my legs would go paralyzed. So maybe not quite as bad as that initial experience, but I had several bouts of paralysis.
Yeah, I get a call, Holly's paralyzed again. and so, can you call her? And we worked on it, and it gets corrected. The energy reaches blocks. We got to find out what the blocks are, work through them, and so forth. And that's just a day in my life. Okay, you got another one paralyzed here. Okay, yeah, Jack.
I've had a handful of amazing experiences, which I don't know if they were Kundalinis, but all three of those that are listed up there, I had an intense feeling of the presence of God.
Yes.
I was crying like a baby, and after I left this, one of them was in the Temple of Ramses in Egypt. I went and rejoined my group, and everyone just looked at me like, what did you just do? And I had no idea. They said, Jack, you're glowing. You are just glowing. But your description of the symptoms or the things that you feel was energy rising. And I don't think I ever felt energy rising. But
Let me just say this. I can't discern it just from what you've told me, but there are some people that are, how many of you would consider yourself more sensitive than most people? Okay, well, we got a lot of sensitives in here. Okay, so if that's the case, it's possible that a lot of things could affect you quite strongly. That doesn't necessarily mean it's Kundalini per se, or it could be. I wouldn't rule it out either. So, but high sensitive people they feel a lot when things are happening, per se.
Proximity to these spiritual temples.
Yes, I'm not ruling out Kundalini. I'm just saying, yeah, high sensitivity people, that could just be what you experience. You live a life of feeling much more than the rest of us sometimes. Yes, ma'am.
In Holly's case, the blocks were those emotional blocks that you were clearing?
Yes, and yes, but it showed emotions as they move through us. show up in different parts of our body for whatever reason. That's just how it seems to work. So they're embodied emotions, you could put it that way to explain it. Yes?
I had an experience a number of years ago where I was driving and I was on the freeway, and I noticed that my feet and legs were getting cold and numb and unresponsive, and then it was extending up my body. Here I am, I'm driving, and it was, the rest of my lower body was getting numb, and it was going up, and I thought, if it reaches my heart, I'm gonna die. So I pulled over and I kind of stumbled up the freeway, off ramp, and I regained, feeling in my legs and all. And I've been looking at it more recently as, polyvagals theory, where you're, if you have that response where you go into fear and you freeze, you can literally faint or become paralyzed.
Yes.
And so I don't know if that's what it was. I wasn't.
We don't know the context of it.
I wasn't in the state of fear. I was just driving home, but it was such an unusual experience.
Yes. Has anybody explained what it was? Have you talked to anybody about it?
I talked to one of the doctors I was working with, and he thought it was an allergic reaction. So for years I thought I was allergic to codeine because I was taking cough medicine.
Yeah,
but I'm not.
A lot of things it could be. First, people would say peripheral neuropathy or a variety of different things. We don't know. We have to know more to figure that out. So, but there's a lot of odd things that happen with this. Joe, how are we doing on time?
At 8:20, so
okay.
I don't know, do you still want to do an exercise?
Yeah, if there's anybody that would like to have an experiential activity, I'm happy to do that. But I'm particularly looking for anybody who thinks that they have a block that you could identify as a blockage that maybe your system is not allowing things to go through. That's an interpretation. You could in other words, you could just call it pain, or you could call it depression or whatever it is. Does somebody in here have some of that now? What would you say your symptom is, sir?
I was in the hospital with pneumonia in November, December. Since I've had depression, anxiety.
Okay.
And
from the hospitalization?
yeah, I'm going to a therapist. She says there's some kind of syndrome people can get because of being scared in the hospital when you're seriously ill. And all the
white coat syndrome? White coat syndrome? People get afraid of doctors and so forth? Tell me a little bit more about it. And so what would you like? If we could do anything, what would you like with that?
Pardon?
If we could do anything with that, what would you like?
Get rid of the depression and this anxiety.
Okay, would you be open to seeking its meaning and function? Do you have any guesses to that effect?
Well, one night I was afraid I was going to die. I couldn't breathe. And I didn't know if the nurses were going to get there. And I didn't know where I was. I've been in this room for 2 or 3 days already.
Okay.
And so I didn't know if I was traumatized. That's why it caused it.
And what was happening when that was taking place?
I was scared to death.
I understand, but was there anything externally, circumstances that was affecting that?
I woke up. I was real tired because I was afraid to go to sleep. If I go to sleep, I was afraid I was going to sleep. My throat gets so dry that I choke.
Okay. Let me ask you to stand up if you would. Could you tell me how you feel what you're describing in your physical body and where you notice it when you're talking about that?
In my throat.
Oh.
Can't breathe.
Okay. Now, first of all, I train my people to say it's hard to breathe. It's difficult to breathe. If you couldn't breathe, you wouldn't be alive. So that freaks out your brain your survival reaction causes sometimes just thinking, I can't breathe. Take a deep breath. Okay, now tell yourself, sometimes it's hard to breathe. Let me just get the verbiage right on this, because it gives your brain a different message. Does that make sense to you? You can and have been able to breathe. It just gets difficult at times. Anybody else ever had trouble breathing at times? Call it trouble breathing. Don't say I can't breathe. No, I need you to stand up, please, if you would. All right, I'm just doing a little English lesson about how you should say that. Okay, tell me. Say it again. What's wrong with your throat?
I have trouble breathing.
Boy, you got it. That's good. I have trouble breathing. Describe to me the trouble, if you would. Describe it.
I woke up, I could barely breathe at all. It's like real wheezy. Throat was real dry. It's like there was 2 or 3 layers of stuff I couldn't breathe through.
And you feel it right now? No. You don't feel it right now?
No.
Okay, well, we're going to work on it, but you're healed already. Do you feel any other physical symptoms associated with the bad emotional state you were just describing? Or are you even in that emotional state tonight?
Well, I'm not depressed or anxious right now.
You do have that?
I've had it, yeah. I was reading in therapy. I just started going to a therapist, trying to figure out EMDR, or using it to help with.
Well, has it helped?
I just got started to see the lady twice.
Well, I don't want to mess it up then. So, all right, so you have some anxiety, you say, right now? Right now?
No, it comes and goes.
Comes and goes.
It's just really bad.
Okay. Well, let me come back to you. I need somebody tonight who's experiencing the thing right now, and I'll try to give some help. It comes and goes. We could still work with it, but just not in this setting per se. Yes, ma'am.
I fell and broke my elbow 4 months ago, and I'm having difficulty bending it.
Which elbow is it?
My left elbow.
And so you broke it, and is it in the healing process right now?
Yes, I had surgery again 2 weeks ago.
All right. And what is expected? Is this a normal thing in recovery, that it should hurt at this point?
Well, I'm having conflict with that question. The doctor showed me video that he could move my arm in surgery.
Which means what?
That I should be able to bend my arm.
Oh, all right. So sometimes I hate that. I'm at the dentist and I'm saying it hurts, and they say, well, it shouldn't hurt. I'm thinking, this means shouldn't hurt. What does that mean? So it hurts, okay? So first I'm going to start by believing you that it hurts. Which elbow is it?
Left.
Left elbow, okay. And could you show me what it is you can and cannot do? Where's your constriction or restriction? Okay, so you're having trouble moving it upward?
No, I'm not supposed to use my shoulder, and I want to use my shoulder to compensate, so I'm going slowly.
Okay. But your elbow hurts, is that correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, just give me just a minute. Close your eyes if you would. And let me know anything you notice at all.
I'm panicking a little bit.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Just all the emotion that's coming up.
Okay. Go with it. Let it happen. Okay, take a deep breath. The emotion probably needed to come up. All right. Tell me what's happening with the emotion at this point.
I'm feeling calmer. I'm just getting through the embarrassment.
Okay. All right. So what's your experience at this point?
I don't feel anything. I don't feel any pain right this minute.
All right. Your elbow's not in pain? And your emotional state has settled?
Yes, I'm calmer.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. You did well. And her eyes were closed. Somebody want to tell her what I did, what happened there? Go ahead and have a seat there. Anybody want to tell her what we did? I got lucky. Is that it? It's some energetic work. Now, if that block happened to be blocking something that was spiritual movement, then it could be a very nice experience for you. If it's just a broken elbow and nothing else related, then your broken elbow feels better. So you win either way. Only one time you get the jackpot if it's a spiritual one. Anybody else have anything you would like? Okay, I got somebody in the back. Okay, yes, ma'am. In the back there. Raise your hand. Hello.
So, for a number of years, I've had a ligament that is stuck in its chamber. It's in my anterior dental.
Okay, let me ask you. When I worked with her, did you notice anything?
I noticed a lot.
What did you notice?
Oh, of course, I noticed your hand sending it.
No, but it knows what did you feel anything?
Oh, in my own body?
And yes.
Just that there was joy seeing a movement for her.
Okay, good. Yeah, let me come back to you for a second. Let me ask you, I forgot to ask, did anybody else notice any effects yourself when I was doing this? What did you notice?
I have multiple sclerosis,
Mm-hmm.
so I was trying to take, I didn't see what you did. I just was saying, there's energy here, I'm taking it.
So how was it? How was it for you?
I felt my feet are a little less tingly, but my tongue is still tingly, so
Okay.
I'm a little bit, but I felt better.
Maybe I can work with her and get your tongue better. We'll see. Anybody else notice anything when I did this? Yes.
I was looking at her and I just felt this urgent need to help her. Like I was really wanting her to be better.
Okay. But did you notice anything yourself? Okay. Okay. Anybody else notice it? Yes. Sherry?
Yeah, I feel like my head got fuzzy.
Okay. All right.
Like I could feel the energy. It's sort of like when I do my Kundalini meditation.
Okay. All right. All right. Anybody else? Yes.
So I have this pain in my chest that moves around and I am just feeling it.
Right now?
Up, yeah.
So it stirred it up. Okay, that's why we had you sign that form when you came in. Things can happen. Things can happen. Well, now put it, at least in your mind, put it in the context of a spiritual experience, okay? If there's some purification that needs to happen, that's what we can do. Now, I'm not finished with you. We could do that. You were standing up. Meridian? Okay, so I'm going to work with her, but I want you to notice, let me ask you this. Try not to help me help her. And just see what your experience is, if you would. Now, I don't know what we can do, but let's just, it's the right shoulder?
It's actually, I think...
Right arm.
Right.
Can you...
There's a connection with it here and also...
And so you've been through a lot of trying to understand it and get treatment for it, and it hasn't worked. Is that right? So this is, okay, I met her the other night, she told me this is her second shot at it. We're going to I didn't get to work on it before, but let's just see what happens, okay? Let me just, let your eyes close if you would.
Let my eyes close?
Yeah, if you would. So I'm going to do something that might be helpful to you. I would like for you to describe to me anything you notice, physically, emotionally, or otherwise.
Well, there's a sensation of a lot of light.
Sensation and a lot of light.
It's moving horizontally.
Did you hear what she said? Okay, it's moving horizontally. Tell me more.
There's numerous different colors in it. They're changing, but they're just like little gazillions of dots of light.
Okay.
In the field.
All right. And
there's
so
a sensation of some. I hate to characterize it like this, but there's a sense of some aching, even though I'm not doing anything with it right now. Typically, I don't feel anything.
Yeah. Okay. I need you to take a deep breath. I need you to go with the aching.
Sure.
Okay. Do you know how to do cross nostril breathing?
Yes.
Can you do it with your left arm? Mm-hmm. Okay. I need you to do that while we're doing this. hard to do cross-nostril breathing and talk to me at the same time, but this is a coordination activity, I guess. So tell me if you're noticing anything more in your right arm.
The energy is moving in my arm. I can feel it all the way down to my, it's actually going through the lung meridian, large intestine meridian.
Oh, this is nice. She can tell you exactly which meridian that's moving, and that's nice. All right. All right. And tell me what you notice with your right arm.
The sensation is intensifying.
Okay.
There's tingling, there's warmth, there's heat.
Okay.
It feels like it's kind of rushing out my fingertips.
All right. Okay. And now, right now, what do you notice in your right arm?
It's less intense, it's still moving.
Okay, we got it on the move. All right.
There's also, I can flop and plop and pop. And there's a sensation when you pop in my neck. And,
Okay, let's see what we have here. Go ahead, stop the cross-nostril breathing. Check your body out. Open your eyes. See what you have at this point. Check yourself out with the, you can stop the cross-nostril breathing and just kind of move around and see what you notice in your physical body.
There's definitely a very strong sensation in the right, but the left is starting to play with it. It's connecting with it. It's starting to like take on some of the left, the right. A lot of energy in my right hand, particularly in my thumb, my index finger, and my middle finger.
So what you're describing will probably continue. I think we've jump-started it in a direction. Let's stop for now, but I think we can do even more. So thank you so much for volunteering and sharing that. I love the way that you could tell us details of how it was moving in your body. Now let me ask, did anybody else in here notice anything affecting your physical body or your psyche as we were doing it? If you did, raise your hand. Okay, what did you notice?
My ears were buzzing.
Ears are buzzing. There's no extra charge for that. What else? Anybody else?
Expansion.
Expansion. Okay, somebody else? Yes.
I kept my right hand like this, and then all of it was going through my hand.
It's going through your hand as well. Empathetic, yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
A softening and opening in my heart.
Okay. So my concept is sacred unity, which is actually the definition of God in the Aramaic version of the Bible. The original meaning was sacred unity. Because there's a unity among us all and everything, that's why people that I'm not even touching or near experience a different phenomena as it affects you. So you were picking it up. And so I can't really control this, so people are having experiences all over the place when we do this. But I hope most of them are good. Anybody else notice anything? Yes?
I noticed that my solar plexus relaxed and opened.
Ah, that sounds like a good thing. All right. All right, anybody else?
Yeah, my leg had been like jerking the whole time.
During the process or after?
But during and still.
Oh, okay.
I don't like the way you said
No, this is, I am preparing you for the marathon in your particular case. No, okay, we'll check. Maybe I can do something with you in a minute. Okay, somebody else? Yeah.
Great calmness.
Great calmness, okay. All right, yes.
I have energy swimming in the crown of my head.
Oh my gosh. You see how individual variance it is, and that's why every person's different. Kundalini rises and it encounters blockages in totally different ways. It's a real art form to work with it. But Amy, I'm concerned. I want to get yours. I'm going to finish yours. Okay. Your legs are jerking? Okay, I need you to stand up if you would. And is it more one leg than the other?
No,
or both of them?
It's kind of both, yeah.
Do you have a sense of any meaning that might have for you?
Well, I have a lot of back and hip pain.
Do you have it right now?
Yeah, it's pretty constant, yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah.
That's just one of my favorite things to work on. So you just happen to hit the jackpot there. All right, so let's see what can happen. So let your eyes closed. This is legs, back, and hips. This person didn't want to just get one thing. She's got a lot here. So let's see what we got here. I want you to pay attention to those parts of your body. And tell me anything you notice.
I feel like I'm like weaving back and forth.
Okay. No extra charge for that. The weave is extra. Okay, what about now?
Still just that same movement, back and forth.
It's a back and forth movement?
Like I'm being pulled towards you and then
Oh,
back.
okay. All right. I want the rest of you, by the woman that said horizontal movement, you saw what my movement was when that was taking place. Okay, now let's see what happens here. Amy, give me feedback. Anything you notice?
Pain is getting better.
Pain is getting better? That's worth it if nothing else? Worth the price of admission? Okay.
Still just movement of back and forth, back and forth.
I normally don't have a comedic God operating when I'm working, but tonight feels different. All right, so okay, what's happening there now?
The pain is going away. My legs feel very heavy.
That's very different than you were. Heavy usually means relaxed.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's stop there. Walk around a little bit for us. I worked with this one guy in front of a large group and worked with his knee, and then before I knew it, he was jogging around the room. Wanted to see it for sure. Listen, anybody else notice anything? Any effects when I did this? Yeah, you were sitting right near her. What did you get, Jack?
Actually, I've talked to you about this before.
Yes.
I had pain in my neck for over 20 years. It would go into spasms and tetany, and it was pretty much constantly tight. Been treated for a bunch of different methods, but the first time I ever felt any real relief was when you did your presentation in the sanctuary some months ago, and you didn't work on me. I was just in the audience, and I felt the same thing today. I felt pain in my neck.
I did work on you. Okay. Anybody want to have a spiritual experience? How many are in favor of that? If you are blocked and would like a spiritual experience, I can't guarantee it, but we'll try. So stand up if you want that. And then when you have it, let's just see what happens. What I'd like for you to do, I can't use this. What I'd like for you to do, whoa, there's a lot of people here. We're going to have a lot of happy people if this works. Okay, what I'd like for you to do, I'm going to have to put the mic down when I do this. I'd like for you to close your eyes, be aware of what your experience is, and let's see what happens. When you notice something happening of a spiritual nature, go ahead and sit down so we'll know what's taking place. I don't necessarily mean Kundalini, but anything that you might consider spiritual. like for you to sit down. And those who had something of that, I'd like for you to stand up. We can change places. The ones that had some kind of spiritual activity, stand up if you would. Can you say what it was? What it was like for you?
My hands went numb and my fingers were tingling.
Okay. All right.
Energy from the torso up here, up to the head, up to the crown.
Okay.
Just lead up on the inside.
Say it again.
Lit out like somebody turning me.
Lit up, like someone did the light. Okay, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I have a teacher on the other side who usually touches me on my arm, but there was a sense of love coming across my back.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, behind her.
I had a feeling that the whole room was moving, and I had similar experience. Yeah, it was being moved forward.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Jack? Jack, you want to say?
I felt threads of energy radiating from myself to everyone else in the room. I felt a connection.
Beautiful, thank you.
Horripilation.
Horripilation, okay. All right.
All I've heard is outward and upward energy to the top of the head.
Yes.
Also a connection and a pulling forward.
Okay.
Part of the room.
All right.
Kind of a sense of heat that's emanated in sweating on the top of my head, and my hands feel like they're twice as big than they are.
All right. Okay, yes. Yes.
I started swaying, like kind of just, and then I saw the purple color I see when I meditate, and then I felt kind of at one with the molecule soup, is what I call it.
Wow.
Just kind of lose my
Thank you.
boundaries. And I was like, I wonder if it's time to sit down, and I just got tremendous gravity on my backside, and I sat down.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you.
I almost fell over. And rocking energy coming up and sweating.
Okay, thank you.
I just had the vibration just go through my whole body and it came on pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
I had a feeling of wonderful relaxation, and then my hands began to, I experienced energy, I guess, flowing through my hands.
Okay.
And then I realized how heavy I am. I have all kinds of armor that I'm wearing.
Oh my goodness.
And this evening is a wonderful opportunity for me to begin the next phase of my life in terms of taking that armor off.
Wow, excellent. It's worth it.
Yes.
Holly?
So, probably like immediately when I closed my eyes, within seconds, the energy went up all the way to my crown, and I started seeing purple, and I got pretty dizzy, so I sat down right away. And now I have energy all in my hands.
Okay. Now, some of the rest of you who didn't detect it, it's not over. This is a starter kit. Yes. In your experience?
Yeah, I felt heat and I started, I almost fell into the chair, otherwise I would have fallen over and it's continuing, it didn't go away, I still kind of feel the pain.
Okay. Yes. All right. Thank you. Yes. Okay.
I felt my heart flutter, and then there was a resonance of energy, and it resonated.
Beautiful. Thank you. Sherry?
I was staying there and I was thinking, what if I don't feel anything? Yeah, this out. And that's what I was thinking. And then all of a sudden I got this giant smile on my face and I felt just blissed out, to use your terminology. And I almost didn't want to sit down because I thought I want to get higher. But then I thought, well, that's cheating.
Yes. I wanted you to have just enough to where it wouldn't be problematic for you. Yes.
Well, I didn't when I was standing up, but when I sat down, I had a tremendous rush, once I sat down.
That's what I mean. It's not over yet. For those of you that didn't, it's not over yet. So it's unfortunately you won't be able to tell me what your drive home was like or something like that, or the next day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chuck. Are y'all as happy as I am that y'all came tonight? Well, that was pretty awesome, wasn't it?